Well, hello and welcome to our first live show of 2024. This is episode 485 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. Happy New Year, everyone, and we are very excited for this week's show to be our first on our new slot of a Wednesday night at 7 p.m. So thanks to everyone for joining us tonight. We're glad to have you along. We've got a packed show tonight, as no doubt many of you will have seen. It's been a busy time for aviation news. We'll be covering all the big stories that have happened over the last 7 days. Plus, there are some lighter side of things on the show with our Caption This entries, as always. And we may well even have some very scathing feedback for our very own Mr. Neville Bands. Now, Nev can't join us on the show tonight. He is busy this evening, but he might be with us later on in the show. You never know if he gets home in time. But across the village here in Suffolk, in East Anglia, in the UK, of course, it is the man who drives the PTUK Master Suite Studios. It's Matt Smith.
Oi, oi.
Hello, Matt.
Hello. I saw you at lunchtime. I don't know why
I saw you at lunchtime.
Because that's literally... Not only do we live just round the corner from each other, it now turns out that we work just round the corner from each other as well.
Yes, I know.
So, yeah, the poor guy can't escape from me.
No, it's lovely. It's nice. It was nice to see you this afternoon, Matt.
Well, you're only human at the end of the day.
No, it's good to see you in the... He comes and makes full use of my kitchen facilities.
Oh, very much. Well, they're better than the ones I have access to, you see, that's why.
And also joining us tonight, he's one of the P2K's he does a lot of work in the background. He looks after our show notes for us alongside our very own John as well. And it's, of course, Nick Codling.
Evening. Hi, Carlos. Happy New Year to you. Great to be back and quite exciting to be starting on a Wednesday for a change. It feels a bit odd, really. I'm sort of just gearing myself up for the weekend normally, so it's going to be a bit strange having to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah, that's true,
that's the bad thing. That's the worst part of it. Yeah,
I should just stress for those of you who are listening to the audio version, basically, although we used to record on a Friday and it was released on a Sunday. Basically, going forward, it's going to be recorded on a Wednesday, released on a Friday night. So so it'll still be released at 7 p.m. on a Friday. The audio only version, if you listen to it via your favourite podcatching app.
Yes. But Armando, as you may notice, he isn't with us tonight either. He's probably, I think, Matt, he's still in the air. Flying commercially. He's sitting actually in a passenger seat as opposed to the left seat of an aircraft. But he might pop in later on. You never know. You know what Armando's like. He tends to sort of drop in, doesn't he? Sometimes if he's not held up too much with storms and all the rest of it. But hopefully he'll be back with us later on this evening. But at very last minute notice, and I mean literally incredibly last minute notice.
And let's not discuss what time it is where he is either, because that's
if we had to discuss which time it was, I think he'd probably pass out again. But at last notice, we managed to get a super sub on the show, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome back onto the show our resident cargo captain who flies, well, probably the best aircraft in the world, let's be honest here, is, of course, John Jester.
Ohayou gozaimasu from Hiroshima, Japan. So it's slightly early in the morning here, but somebody decided to wake me up and asked me to be on the show. So
Carlos,
glad to be here.
Yeah, I feel so bad now, John. I think honestly, John,
you should feel bad. Yeah.
when you are back in the UK, John, you need to get over here to our neck of the woods, and I promise I will take you out and spoil you rotten with food and beverages.
Well, you actually lucked out, as I had to wake up and my body's still on European time, having just flown in yesterday into Japan, so. I'd woken up. The one thing here in Japan is the beds are disguised boards.
Right.
Put sheets on boards. So
yeah,
I woke up with
good for the back,
with a slightly amputated arm, and decided that I just would see what's going on and get some blood back in the arm. And I saw this message from Carlos, so here I am.
He's a legend, that man. Honestly, such a legend. Thanks for joining us, John. So you say you've flown into Japan. I'm guessing you obviously flew in with cargo, and you're taking cargo back out.
No, actually, we flew a dead empty 747, the miracle of U.S. military contracts, from Liège, Belgium to Iwakuni, Japan, just south of Hiroshima, and dropped it off to pick up cargo that's going some other place in the world.
Was that the Dash 400 or the Dash 8?
Yeah, it was a 400. It was actually a BCF, so a Boeing converted freighter, which is the big humpback ones. Not my favorite plane to fly, but I like the freighters a little bit better. But it's 400, so it's good. And we were able to get up and go, and we were, because of cold weather, we were hauling butt across the European and Asian continents, anywhere between 8.6 and 8.9 Mach. So,
oh wow!
So see some Airbuses keep up with us.
Yeah. Challenge accepted.
I suppose at least in the country you currently are, I suppose when you leave there, when you do leave there, you'll have loads of Japanese snacks on board.
Yes, catering out of Japan is usually a good thing. I won't be going down to Nagoya, which is generally our favorite Japanese airport to operate out of, because when we operate out of there, we get to put a meal request in if we want sushi.
Oh,
they will
wow.
put sushi on the plane. But they generally always have some of these just like little Japanese snacks. And I like coming here now because I've discovered this. I showed them earlier, but this little goodie is just evil goodness. Chocolate.
It's all right though. They're only 33 calories a stick. It's fine.
I just looking at that actually.
It's not a problem. It's fine.
I try to not tear through them all in one go, but sometimes it's a challenge. But
you realise now that I've been really, really good most of this Christmas, and downstairs I still have a whole tub of celebrations, which I now feel like I need to go downstairs and open immediately.
And that is the problem. At Christmas time, you have those chocolates. You think, I'm going to have one or two.
No, you don't.
But then one becomes 10, 10 becomes 20, and
we have an unusual ritual in our house over Christmas as well, in the fact that we always have in the bottom of our stocking, we don't have an orange, which is what you're supposed to have, of course, or a tangerine. We have the chocolate variety, obviously.
I was going to say a chocolate orange is perfectly acceptable.
Terry's chocolate orange. You see, and my intention always is to smash it open and eat one piece.
No, it doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't. No, it does not. No.
It's all part of your 5 a day.
Given that I live in the Netherlands, my family's thing is a little different. My general treat for the Christmas holidays is my wife will pick up some aged Gouda cheese, so maybe like a 12-year-old Gouda.
Yeah.
Well, and the only competition is that my 12-year-old son loves it too. So.
Oh no! So you got to get there first, basically. Yeah.
Well, at least I get some. I don't mind sharing with him sometimes, but I think sometimes he gets more of it than I do because I'm on the road so much.
You're on the road so much, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Carlos, you know how much I love cheese. In fact, when I'm house sitting the lovely Poppy Cat, Gemma leaves me quite an impressive haul of specialist cheeses for me to enjoy as my thank you gift, which is just glorious.
We're lucky here where me and Matt live, John. We not only do we live sort of in the sort of countryside-ish and such, but we've got a farm that's just literally about a mile down the road from us. That's, apart from selling worldwide award-winning cheese, they also sell raw milk.
Yeah.
Milk.
I thought you were thinking about Maysbrook. So you go like a mile and a half one way to get the best meat in the entire world, and then you go like a mile and a half the other way.
Oh, we're very lucky.
Raw cheeses and literally fresh from the cow milk. Honestly, it is my favourite thing. Anyway, sorry, we're
going on to food.
We haven't been talking about planes very long.
Stop. So, I'm going to say a very special welcome to everyone who's joined us in the live YouTube chat room this evening. Let's go have a look and see who's joined us on this Wednesday evening, I might add as well. It's Mazouz was first in the room tonight. Hello, Mazouz, our local listener. We have got Richard Adams. Hello to you, Richard, as well. Good to see you in there. Captain Cruz, He's in the chat room as well. We have got Lee Davies. Hello to you, Lee. I think he's a bit shocked. It's a Wednesday night. He can't drink.
Yeah.
Hobby Time is also in there. Good to see you. Chris Marsh is also there. Hello, Chris. Bill is in there. Hello to Bill. Good to see you. Dirk S is in there. Tanya. Hello, Tanya. The lovely Tanya. Good to see you in there, Tanya. Good to see you in there. Masha, the lovely Masha, is in there as well. Hello to you, Masha. I hope you're not too cool like it is here. It's freezing outside here. Let's scroll down, make sure I don't miss anyone. Evan. Hello, Evan.
Yeah, I was going to say, Evan. We've got Mike Williams as well. Hello.
Yeah, Evan Shue, he's in there as well. It must be late where Evan is. I can't never remember. Yeah, Mike Williams. Hello to Mike. Good to see you on there as well. Arnie. Hello, Arnie. Good to see you as well, Arnie. Nina is also in there. Good evening to you. I know who that is. She works with me at Novum. Good to see you in there.
Oh, name drop. Oh, here we go.
I know. Bless her. I'll probably pronounce the name completely wrong, and she'll have a go at me tomorrow.
Quite right.
But
Absolutely. You have my permission to bash him over the head. Yeah.
I know. Thanks for that. Honestly,
always a pleasure. Yeah.
So yeah, good to see you all in there. Don't forget
Bill as well.
Bill. Yes, well, I did mention Bill.
Oh, did you? Oh, sorry.
Bill.
All right.
Yeah, and Bill and Mike as well.
I'll stop. Dirk, did you mention Dirk? Yeah.
I mentioned Dirk, yes.
Right,
Hello, Dirk.
I'll stop interfering, sorry.
Anyway, if you are listening to our voices on the podcast, as in the audio podcast, and you want to see just how stunning we all look in glorious HD.
Don't do it. Just listen to the audio version. Don't do it.
Check us out on YouTube. We're on YouTube, Plain Talking UK. Don't forget to subscribe and also hit that bell icon to be notified when we're live and broadcasting a show as we are right now. We'd love to have you in the chat room, especially with tonight, because we've got some very big stories indeed to talk about on the show tonight. So with that in mind, it's commercial news time. So Matt, John and Nick, if you're all ready.
We are.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
The captain has turned on the seatbelt light. Please take your seats and fasten your seatbelts.
No, you're not going to speak.
I can't hear the. You've turned the feedback, the music back through the headphones down so far. I can't hear anything.
Oh, you should have been able to.
No, totally dead. But anyway, not to worry. Kicking off this week's first news story on the commercial news segment this week it made massive news when this happened. I think there was at least probably 10 or 15 different videos of this incident on the various social media platforms, Twitter and YouTube as well, and Facebook. This is obviously from the BBC.co.uk. This is the Japan Airlines crew, the crew of the Japan Airlines aircraft that had that incident last week. It was Japan Airlines Flight 516 that collided with a Coast Guard aircraft as it landed. 5 of the 6 people on board the smaller Coast Guard aircraft sadly passed away, but the captain, I think, escaped that flight. The flawless evacuation of that Japan Airlines flight astounded the world and won praise from many aviation experts and flight crews, saying it boiled down really to the flight crew putting their rigorous training in place and well-behaved passengers. That was another point of this, who obeyed safety protocols. They said that they didn't see a single passenger on the ground in any of the videos, and they've seen none of them had luggage at all, so none of them were taking their hand luggage off, which we've seen many times on these videos and stuff. The evacuation, they said, was very dangerous because it would be slowing down in an evacuation if people had tried to take off their luggage. Now, Professor Ed Gallier, director of the Fire Safety Engineering Group at University of Greenwich, said that. And he said also the state of the aircraft, the A350, made the evacuation difficult. Professor Gallier said the accident was far from ideal. The aircraft was nose down. Obviously, the nose gear had collapsed when it struck the aircraft on the runway, which meant it was difficult for passengers to move. Only 3 of the inflatable slides could be used to evacuate passengers, but they were not properly deployed because of how the jet landed. Also, with that nose being collapsed as well, it made the slides further back on the aircraft very steep as well, which could have been dangerous. The aircraft's announcement system also malfunctioned during the evacuation, so the flight crew had to convey their instructions using a megaphone system, handheld system, by shouting, Japan Airlines later said. One passenger sustained bruises. 13 others had requested medical supervision. Consultation is due to physical discomfort, the airline has said. The airline, or the aircraft itself, departed from Sapporo's new Chitose airport at 4 o'clock local time and landed at Haneda shortly before 6 p.m. The small Coast Guard aircraft was due to deliver aid to victims of the earthquake, which happened on New Year's Day. And the accident investigation to this collision is underway. Obviously, we've seen the pictures. Obviously, Matt had the pictures on here as well of the incident itself. I mean, I've read reports, and I don't know if you've seen these as well, John, obviously you being our pilot on the show this evening, that a lot of people said that the way that the A350 is manufactured, the materials it used probably helped to keep this fire, suppressed for long enough for these passengers to be able to deplane.
Yeah, this is a first hull loss of a carbon fiber fuselage aircraft. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the resulting investigation on the survival factors and how it survived. It does seem that the airframe really held together for an extremely long time and allowed them to get out. The whole structure really survived a really major impact. I thought fairly well. The initial pictures you see, there's damage to the nose. Obviously, the nose gear was taken out, but the rest of the fuselage was mostly intact all the way back. Damage to the engines and stuff you would kind of expect from it dropping down, plus, probably taking parts of the Coast Guard aircraft through it, and everything was intact and held together. I think the survival factors in this is going to be a really amazing part of this impact of this investigation. We'll be seeing what happened there and how it held together, what their comments are from the Japanese investigative authority on this, and but something we can learn from and hopefully implement in the new following up aircraft, because I think carbon fiber aircraft is going to be the way of the world going forward. And now we have this great learning opportunity. Everybody came out for the most part on this in the good. The poor crew on that Coast Guard aircraft. I mean, that would have been pretty hard to survive in any kind of airframe. So the fact that one person came out of that aircraft is quite surprising, actually.
Obviously, the details, obviously, we saw in the news and stuff of how the flight crew and stuff operated after the incident. I think there was some ATC recordings as well, which were released. The transcript was released of that. But with the procedure for what these guys went through when they initially landed, obviously they're a passenger aircraft. They've got passengers on board the aircraft. But is it exactly the same procedures you would follow being a cargo pilot like yourself? Obviously, with the 747 that you fly is slightly bigger than the 350, but the procedures you'd follow are the same as if you were traveling either bringing or carrying passengers or cargo.
So, from the flight crew perspective, the big change is generally we need to try to make an announcement to the back, and in this case, it looks like probably from the damage of the impact, probably cut through the lines that are used to communicate back and forth. But we try to communicate initially to the flight attendants as soon as we could. If we had a passenger flight, or we'd be most likely just yelling to the back on a 747 cargo plane because we don't have a door, and saying, okay, stay on board, or we're evacuating. But the basic process, is get the airplane stopped, get it safe for others to be around. We want to try and get the engine shut down. I did read and hear reports that one of the engines did not shut down on this plane, likely as a result of damage, cutting the lines that would be used to cut the fuel to the engine. But we try to make the aircraft safe for an evacuation. And that's one of the big things the flight attendants have to do. And in this case, the flight attendants in the back had to make their own decisions because they're totally cut off. They're on the back end of this large wide-body aircraft, and they're making these decisions on their own. That's what they're trained for, and it's very important that the training is very strong, that they're able to assess the situation, make their own decisions when they are cut off, and that seems to be what they did. They executed it well under extremely challenging situations with dark, fire, smoke, all the things that you don't want to deal with were all present, plus the aircraft attitude, and they got everybody off. And it took a long time. They didn't have the nearly number of exits they were supposed to for certification standards, and then they were dealing with large amounts of fire and a challenging situation to boot. So, I mean, hats off to them and holding them all together.
Yeah, I mean, I've got sort of so many things in this. As I say, I mean, the cabin crew, it's a sort of like an ongoing joke. Well, not joke even, but like, they do so much like in-flight service and all that kind of thing. But sometimes you almost forget what a pivotal role they have in you getting out of that thing should something go wrong. For me, actually, as a nervous flyer, this situation actually fills me with huge confidence, because you think the amount of exits available to them as a result of the fire was compromised, and yet as long as you do what the crew tell you to do, then you stand a good chance of getting away from that as long as you follow their instructions. And I know, Carlos, you mentioned it when you were reading the story. One of the things that I take huge comfort from, and maybe it is because, the majority of the culture, shall we say, of the people who are on there is to sort of carry out instructions well. Nobody tried to save their luggage. They literally just concentrated on saving themselves. And that was, and I do think that this should be used as an example of why it's so important that you listen to everything that your crew is saying. They're not just there to serve you tea and coffee. These people will literally save your save your life, and also put themselves at risk to save your life. That's the thing, because their focus, if you like, is and it's the same for the captains and the first officers and everything. Their focus is to get everybody off that plane first, and then they'll worry about themselves. And that's so. As I say, as a nervous passenger, this is such a weird crumb of comfort in an awful situation, if you see what I mean, and the fact that it just goes to show how important the protocols are that are in place to deal with incidents like this. And it's so nice to see that the plan worked. This plan that everybody's been surmising over for many, many years, and it absolutely worked. And this crew smashed it out of the park.
One of the questions that I got asked this week, actually, John, I'm glad you got you on the show. One of the questions that someone I work with asked me this week was, and this is something you'll know perfectly because you fly at night as well as day, but they asked how easy is it to see other aircraft on the runway if you're coming into land at night. You've got all those lights from the runway, you've got taxi lights, you've got hold lights, you've got all those lights. How easy is it to see yourself as a pilot when you're coming in on finals if there is potentially another aircraft either lining up or on the runway?
It can be extremely difficult to see another aircraft on the runway. The aircraft with a tail light instead of the wingtip lights are more difficult, particularly because that tail light is center line and it tends to just blend in. And unless they've got a really strong set of landing lights that's kind of lighting up the rest of the runway, that whole airframe will essentially blend in, especially where that aircraft, this Japanese Coast Guard aircraft, had maneuvered into the 1,000-foot down the runway. That's right in the field of touchdown zone lighting. So you have embedded lights on either side of the center line that are extending down 1,500 feet or so down the runway. And they were sitting in the middle of that. This is not a large aircraft. It's high aspect wings, so they're not going to be blocking a lot of those lights when you have a little small tail light in the back. I can't for the life of me remember how the strobes are on that Dash 8, but I don't recall them being as a very strong light, and that would make it very difficult for them to see. And this aircraft at the last bit in the round out, they're going to be focusing. They're going to come from basically inside the cockpit, looking at everything, and at that last 150, 200 feet, you're going to start looking out more and transitioning to looking down the runway to make your flare, because we're flaring at a radar altimeter of like 30 to 50 feet, but the cockpit's almost 80 to 100 feet up in the air. So we're looking well past that aircraft. They never probably even saw it. So they just touched down. They're just starting to derotate, what it looks like from the witness marks that we're seeing on the front of the aircraft in the pictures from the fire department, where just below that floor level, there's witness marks where there's like a cut. So these guys were not even derotated. So they were probably looking all the way down the runway, well past this Coast Guard aircraft. And just,
Forgive my naivety here, John, and as I say, I appreciate you're getting all the questions here, and you're having to guess as much as we are, I suppose. But when you're coming into land, presumably the nose is slightly up as well, so anything that is potentially right underneath, because you're not landing on the nose wheel, are you? Essentially, you're landing ideally on the rear wheels. So again, if there is something immediately in your path, that I guess is another factor that could easily be missed, because the nose is elevated in comparison to the rest of the plane at that crucial moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And a wide body aircraft, the deck angle is fairly significant on touchdown, and that does blank out maybe 500, 1,000 feet in front of you at that initial touchdown zone.
Right.
And your vision is out to the end of the runway, because if we look at the runway, that's called spotting, and that's when you tend to, get a carrier landing versus a passenger landing. And so you're taught to look down the runway, because your sensors will then help you with those last minute adjustments to make the touchdown, at a reasonable rate. Sometimes, like when I've landed in very poor conditions and I wanted to drive myself onto the runway in a certain spot in a very solid landing, I will forego looking down the runway like I normally would, and will intentionally kind of look at the ground, because I know that will essentially drive me into the runway more and make it a more spot hard landing. But in certain cases, that's what you want. And this aircraft, there's a normal relaxed flight for them, a short flight, and they're coming in, they're trying to make a nice landing. Japanese airlines are known for incredible service in all regards. That would just be part of it. And you just missed this aircraft. A colleague that I flew with just the other day flew the A380, so similar flight deck to this, and he also mentioned that the screens inside automatically switch when they get down to a set altitude, which he couldn't remember off the top of his head, to a runway exit plan. So it basically switches the screen to the runway, and it will give them a expectation for where they're going to be able to exit the aircraft based on their current state of energy. And I think that maybe they'll know if that has TCAS depiction on it or ADSB depiction on it, but maybe that also would cover up this TCAS system. And TCAS for the aircraft are all inhibited. I think, if I remember off the top of my head, it's 800 feet AGL. It totally stops talking to us and won't give us anything other than a visual depiction.
Because it's decided you're essentially very busy at that point, I guess. That's you don't need a distraction, essentially.
Correct.
Yeah.
We've got a question from the chat room, John, just quickly here. It's from Mike. He's saying, light aircraft pilot here. Never heard the term derotate before. Is that when a nose wheel settles onto the ground after the mains touch?
It is. And we use the term derotate because we have so much aircraft to deal with that if we did not let the aircraft down in a controlled manner, it's when you can do some damage to the aircraft. My airline had an unfortunate experience with the 767 where a first landing for a brand new pilot, and he just didn't let it down properly, didn't derotate. The nose just came down and it folded the fuselage up.
Ow.
Wow.
Yeah.
So just as a sort of like, And I know it's too early to tell, but I mean, is it clear who was at fault here at this stage?
You're asking the accident investigator to make a determination like that out in public.
Yeah, no,
painful.
not at all. No, sorry.
I would say that the indications are that the aircraft did not belong where it was. The Coast Guard aircraft did not belong there. Now, why that is the case, we'll hopefully be able to recover the information off the CVRs if they can get that data and determine if there was a breakdown in CRM, miscommunication. They read back on the transcript that was released the correct readback, which was taxi to holding point Charlie 5, and that's the phrase that we use with us when they want us to go to a set position along the runway. One of the smaller taxiways are generally a letter number combination, and then that holding point is the hold short, and we will hold short there. And why they chose and got out in the runway is the question. The understanding is that they interviewed the captain from the Coast Guard aircraft, and he was under the impression that they were cleared to take off.
Right.
Wow.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
But the problem with that is to say is the memory of a person who's been involved in a traumatic accident is going to be questionable.
Yeah.
They're going to want to be creating answers in their head.
Yeah. Which is
whether they're accurate or not.
Yeah. You were asking Nick. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say there seemed to be some suggestion about some phraseology that seems to be particular to Japan in terms of their air traffic control phraseology. I believe that the Coast Guard aircraft was referred to as number one because I think, from what I understand, it's sometimes normal that when they are directing aircraft for takeoff, they will sort of allocate them as number 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And I think that might have been a part of the issue with the instructions being misconstrued by the Coast Guard aircrew. I don't know if that's something that you've come across before with the being referred to by a number.
And I think what happened, he was given a sequence, is my impression from it, listening to it, reading it. And I've heard that before, not actually in Japan, but it would make sense to me because he was putting him to an intersection that was further down the runway while taxiing some of the larger wide-body aircraft full length. And it would be advantageous for ATC and for the Coast Guard aircraft to have been launched first and allow them to get up and get out of the way rather than incur extended delays because of the wake turbulence separation requirements from those wide-body departures. And the Dash 8 doesn't need much runway. That the location 1,000 feet down the runway was like a non-event for them, given that's a stalled aircraft, and they could have gotten up, turned off, and been out of the way of everybody in short order and on their way. So telling them number one, I think, was just a signal for them, okay, I need you ready to go. I'm going to put you out as soon as he could, which is probably what was going on in the controller's mind. This is going to be these crews. My condolences to everybody, and even this captain survived. Japanese culture is going to be very hard on him. And he's going to have a difficult life going forward, carrying this on with them. And I think that even the controllers in that tower are going to be feeling significant trauma from this event for
without question.
Years.
Yeah. I mean, as I say, for me, I guess one of the big takeaways from this whole thing is it's still awful. There's no two ways about it, but so easily it could have been so much worse.
What are our thoughts in terms of had this occurred, for example, in North America or Europe, and how might we have seen different behaviour from the passengers?
Honestly, I think it would have been far worse, personally.
Yeah, passengers would have, I think it would have been a different story.
I think it would.
This is what I'm wondering, is whether or not that there are lessons to be learned from this, and how how might those be implemented in such a way that people will actually take notice of them and
I think the problem we'll always have with this is that people will always be people, and we are all very individual and we're all very unique in every single way, and that will always be the one variable that anybody who builds an aircraft and has to process information like this will never be able to get right at the end of the day. As I say, it's yes, we could go on and on. Obviously, it's a fascinating subject in many ways, but we should probably move on.
But yes, moving on to the next story. Obviously, it's been a very busy last kind of sort of 10 days in the aviation world. Nick, you've got the next story, and it's obviously the story that's dominated the news, I think, for the last kind of 6 days, hasn't it?
Yeah. So talking about the Alaska Airlines incident with the door plug. So yeah, I think I just sort of wanted to give a bit of an overview initially, because my first question about this was, why is there this kind of door that isn't a door that was right next to a row of seats?
I blame Ryanair.
Yes, well, in actual fact, you're not too far off.
Really?
Off the mark there, Matt.
Okay.
Yeah, so essentially they've got an option on the airframe of having an emergency exit door. However, it's down to the individual airline seating configuration as to whether or not they actually use it. So, and in actual fact, Ryanair would be one of the airlines that would use it because they have a much higher density seating plan.
Yep.
So, so that kind of answers the question as to what this, in inverted commas, door plug is and why it's there. Now, from what I also understand is that this is not something that's necessarily new to the MAX. I know that, when we say 737 MAX, we all have to have a drink. And, it's sort of, people do get a bit twitchy with the MAX, but they have actually been using
this won't help, let's be honest.
Well, no. And, it's not done Boeing's share prices in many favours this week. It
has tanked. I think they have tanked, I think is the word we're looking for.
Yeah, the line went...
Yeah.
So these door plugs have actually been used on the 737-900ER variant. So this is something that they've used previously prior to the MAX. So essentially, what happens is that you have this option to have a door aperture on the aircraft, which you may or may not use. And in the event that you don't use it, you put the door plug in there. So currently there are 5 airlines that are using it. So you've got Aeromexico with 19 aircraft, Alaska with 65, Copa with 29, Turkish Airlines with 5, and the largest operator is United with 79. And I believe that the FAA essentially grounded all of them pretty much the next day, I think.
Yeah, the MAX 9s.
And then I think those of them which are outside of the US sort of did so voluntarily with a view to an airworthiness directive to do an inspection. And it subsequently turned out that, some of the United aircraft do have loose door plugs. So...
oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't know if we've actually got an image, Matt, I don't know
yes,
which gives a kind of a diagram as to how it fits.
Yeah, so we've got several pictures to share. We do have some ATC audio to play as well. So
should we play that out?
Yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah, okay.
Let's go with that.
All right, yeah. So let's have a
have you heard this yet, John? The ATC audio from this?
No, I have not.
Okay. Let's see what you think about this, John.
Well, let's go down. I'm sorry, last aircraft again? Last aircraft say again? Center Alaska, Trouble 2, we're declaring emergency. We're descending down to 10,000. Safety criteria. Alaska Quality 2, Roger. Descend and maintain 10,000. And when able, give me the nature of the emergency and your intentions. Portland, Alaska, or Seattle, Alaska. 1282, we just did pressure. We're declaring emergency. We need to descend down to 10,000. Alaska 482, Roger. Descend and maintain 10,000, 10,000, and enable state your nature emergency and touchy. We just depressurized, descend and maintain 10,000, and we need to return back to Portland. 482, Roger. Descend and maintain 1,000, and Portland altimeter 3023, flight permit heading to Alaska 1282. And Portland, Seattle, Alaska 1282. We need to return back to Portland if we can get one. Okay, stand by. I'm going to contact Portland and just let them know your issue. You're just having pressurization problems. Are you going to need any assistance on the ground? Yes, we need it assist. We declared an emergency, and we have 177 passengers on board, and our fuel is 18,900. Hey, Portland, approach Alaska 1282, emergency aircraft now leveling 12,000 and a left turn heading 340.
Alaska 1282, phone approach, good afternoon. You still have information zero?
Yeah, we do have information zero. We'd like to get lower if possible.
Alaska 1282, descend and maintain 7,000.
Descend and maintain 7,000, Alaska 1282.
Alaska 1282, did you declare an emergency or just need to return to?
Yes, we are emergency. We are depressurized. We do need to return back to. We have 177 passengers. Fuel is 18.8.
Alaska 1282, Roger. And do you need time to burn off some fuel before you land?
Negative.
Alaska 1282, so you're ready for the approach now? You is 28 left, okay?
We need about 10 minutes for Alaska 1282.
Alaska 1282, Roger. Just let me know when you're ready.
We'll let you know, Alaska 1282.
And Alaska 1282, sorry to bother you again. Are you okay at 7 or do you want lower?
And Portland, Alaska 1282, we are ready for the approach and we'd like to do the approach.
Alaska 1282, can you get down from there or you want to give you a box around to get down?
We can get down, Alaska 1282.
Alaska 1282, no problem if I clear you from there. It looks like you're on a localizer.
Clear for the approach, Alaska 1282.
Alaska 1282, I just want to verify no problems making descend. We can bounce you back around for another approach if you like.
I think we got it, Alaska 1282. Thank you.
Alaska 1282, no problem. Contact tower 123.77. Have a good night.
2377, good night, 1282. Portland Tower 1282, we're on the ILS tree, last emergency aircraft.
Alaska 1282, Portland Tower, wind 160 at 11, runway 28 left, clear tonight.
Settle in at runway 28 left, Alaska 1282.
Wow.
I think that was, the end of the recording there. Thanks to Live ATC. They actually had that on their website as well, released. So good to see. And Bass Aviation as well had that on their YouTube page with the flight track as well on there. So good to go and watch that if you've not already seen it. John, your thoughts on that ATC recording?
Amazing job by that crew. You'll hear in the beginning there that she's definitely on oxygen. She's probably on forced oxygen, almost sounded like, because the way when she would start to take any little bit of air, it was a lot of oxygen being shoved into her face. You can hear it. And it's very kind of hard actually to talk when you have that mask on. Lots of confusion. My understanding is when this door came off, it was obviously it's an explosive decompression, that the door to the cockpit banged open. It was apparently designed to do that. Nobody knew that. So when mass confusion, they were losing, I think I understood some of the checklist materials kind of exited the cockpit because so much airflow. And for them to handle this situation in such a quick manner, turn around, get the aircraft back down was excellent. She had really good communications, immediately providing the standard souls on board, fuel on board, what they had going on in terms of depressurization. I think the only thing she could have added for color would have been just saying explosive decompression, but it really didn't matter at that point. And they handled it in quick order. And thank goodness nobody was next to that seat, because in that window the door going out, if you've been in that seat, would have been probably some serious injuries. Just from the amount of air going through, and probably would have been parts of your body being sucked out. Even if you didn't get sucked out yourself, you might have had some serious physical injuries from just the event. So hats off to the entire crew on that, dealing with the situation, getting it back on the ground. in such a calm manner. ATC was real quick in handling the situation. I think this is going to be really good from the review of the crew's actions. Now, what's going to be questioned is what happened with the rest of this stuff. So,
yeah, one of the comments made on the NTSB, because the NTSB, for those of you who may subscribe to their YouTube channel, they actually done a report. I think for the first 3 or 4 days after the initial incident. Really good. They were really thorough. Done a press conference, all streamed on YouTube. One of the things they did say on I think their last report they done was that the crew had a real issue with communicating with the flight deck, whether it was the intercom system that was down or what, I don't know, but they said that the crew had a real job communicating with the flight deck crew.
A random sort of question, really, which may be linked to that. I mean, I guess we've not really been in this sort of situation before, have we? This is a really odd situation. I mean, what must have the noise been like in the cabin there? I mean, will it have been just purely the whoosh of outside air noise and all that? Because I mean, you know, the aircraft is no longer pressurized, obviously, so that's going to have an impact on things. But will it have become really, really noisy, or will it have been strangely a bit sort of eerie almost?
I would say, I mean, the door coming off would have been properly loud. That would have been resonant because of the pressure change, the way it came off, nature. You know, it's instantaneous. That much pressure on that door. That would have been loud. The speed that they were at, I believe, was something like 270 knots. So they were still kind of accelerating in the climb out. That would have been a lot of airflow. And yeah, then I think for everybody, it probably would have been strangely silent. But that's also because of the nature of your body to react to stress. It will shut off your auditory cues,
right,
to some extent, and dampen it. And I'm sure this crew, as soon as this happened, I haven't seen the flight track, but I'm fairly sure that they slowed down in a hell of a hurry, down to probably 250 knots, and began their descent as they were putting on the oxygen mask. It would have been wildly exciting up in the flight deck. You know, the cost of messages, and then to have this door let loose, I mean, and the with cabin door opened up.
With that in mind, John, I mean, what would have, I mean, so this essentially was like a sort of like only required if needed door, if you see what I mean. So essentially it was like an all-in-one sort of thing, but this was an area, as you say, because some of the variants with more seating, a different seating arrangement, different seating plan, you need that extra exit, essentially. But would it have still had all of the sensors and everything? So, I mean, other than the crew telling them, would that how and obviously I guess the other warning is because obviously they'd be aware that the cabin immediately depressurized and stuff like that. But is that all that they'd be aware of at that point, or would they have known that that door was missing until they managed to get a message from the crew? It's a strange question, I know, but you know, if the door isn't active, does it have all the sensors and everything?
My suspicion from dealing with our aircraft, it's like this BCF I flew the other day, had doors. They're still sort of there. They've all been deactivated and bolted shut.
Yeah.
And we have zero synoptic capabilities with those doors. So I'm going to assume, I hate saying that, but
yeah.
I'm going to assume that it probably is not depicted on there. But as soon as they start getting a pressure fluctuation, losing the cabin or something like that, then that likely would have set it off. I don't know if these Max jets, if that plug has a PSEU, a proximity sensor unit, and if that would have been reporting onto it. But as soon as that door came off, I mean, that's like an instantaneous, you know. You don't need a sensor for that part.
No,
but
I'm not.
I don't know they would have had any indication prior to that.
And that's really my question. Is it's that whole they will have 100% know instantaneously that something had gone terribly wrong in the cabin. But would they have necessarily known what the problem was until they'd had an opportunity to get a message from the crew? Because I mean, obviously the crew would have known pretty instantaneously what
unless that was wired, that door was wired, or that plug was wired. They would not have known.
No,
they would just known they decompressed, and it would have been waiting for somebody to come up and say, "Hey, we have a
problem,
big hole inside the plane."
Yeah, yeah.
What's really interesting about this is that aircraft had a number of instances prior to this flight where they had pressurization warnings, and
really,
effectively
3, I think.
Effectively, those warnings had been kind of reset and almost assumed to be a kind of a fault.
When in fact there's a chance
it was kind of ignored, with the recommendation that the aircraft not be flown over water in case a pressurization issue did occur and they might need to return. So it was to an extent known about, but kind of nobody really did anything about it. Because actually,
that bit really shocked me.
Well, they didn't really know what the problem was, I guess.
And we don't know if those related, though, at this point. That's the thing
that's true.
That's true. And I guess
aircraft was operating in accordance with a DDGs, the term we use with the Boeing's item, and over and above that requirement from the DDG restrictions, they decided to not let it go operate ETOPS. So that was an additional item that was done by Alaska in their safety program, but they're having cabin pressurization monitors lose their was switching back to the alternate mode, to the alternate computer, and that's how it's supposed to operate, and you still have a manual after top of that. So was this a fault of that? Nobody knows. I mean, if it was maybe compensating because there's some random leak going on at that door, but I would have expected that there would have been quite a bit of noise, because even when we have a seal going wrong on a door, I mean, I recall a particular flight where we had a seal go bad on the servicing door on a CRJ, and it was like 6-8 feet behind us, and we could hear it just screaming
but
at the top of its lungs because it was all the air going out. This little small tear. I would think that if there's a leak in this door, it would have been making a lot of noise, and somebody would have been reporting that as well, but it doesn't seem like there was.
Would there have been and again, if I was sat near that the fate, well, the non-door, if you see what I mean, would I have necessarily, or the cabin, I mean, I guess the cabin crew might have done, but like if I heard a slightly strange noise and I'm on an aircraft that I don't really know, I wouldn't necessarily know to identify it and or flag it. I mean, if you were there, John, you'd think that's a whistling door, that's got something, there's every chance that like Mr. Joe Bloggs might just think, well, what's that strange?
Well, from the inside of the aircraft, you don't necessarily know that door plug is there, because all you can see is the kind of the wall and the sort of the internal skin of the aircraft that you can see sat in your seat, and then you can see a window, but you don't know what's behind that kind of. So
I do feel terrible, by the way, because I feel like we're grilling poor John, and he's just here trying to provide us with information. I'm so sorry.
No, like what Nick is saying there, Matt. You'd never know if you were sitting in that seat, that passenger seat. You'd not know there was a door there. It's amazing how they do
I
it.
Appreciate
it's
that.
completely blended in.
But I mean,
but also from
the
noise, point of view
the noise would be there. We would,
noise,
so I get where John's coming from, absolutely. But what I'm saying is, would me, as Mr. Joe Bloggs, not a great flyer, doesn't do a great deal.
You might well wonder what the noise is.
Yeah, but would I dismiss it as
it's generally very loud? It's a very high pitched squeal, and I think that if there was a pressure leak, somebody might have noticed it. The flight crew would have noticed it.
Yeah.
And if a flight crew is noticing and it's coming from behind a wall area,
like
that would be a little bit concerning. And most air crew, flight attendants, pilots, and all that, and certainly anybody sort of a aviation geek would probably notice that row, because the window spacing's off.
Yeah.
On the on that part, and they would know there's
something there,
that door there, or was the door there, and maybe say something. but that pressurization squeals are just annoying.
I guess
annoying noise.
I'm just saying it couldn't be confused. So, somebody who doesn't know a great deal of things, you wouldn't just dismiss it as because I've heard squeals and high pitched noises and stuff, and what but it's coming from the overhead.
And the barking dog on the A320?
Well, yeah, but that's because it's been explained to me at great length what that is, so I'm all right on that one. But, I guess that's the thing is just like, if you've got an inexperienced crew or you've got an I don't know.
You can see how this could have been missed by the operators of the aircraft themselves, because actually, unless you take an internal panel off the aircraft, you can't actually see the thing. So you've got no way of knowing just by kind of glancing at it whether or not there's actually a problem. And
I can't understand expecting an acceptance program that you'd be accepting the aircraft before it has an interior. You're expecting Boeing to deliver an aircraft that meets all the airworthiness requirements mechanically and structurally. And if they, it'll be interesting to see how this goes out with this.
My worry,
structures engineer I know is on this from the NTSB is extremely good. He's worked on my crash with the 767. He was the one that was the structures person for the Piper down in Vero Beach, I think it was, or was it Emory Riddle, I think, crashed, maybe Jacksonville, where the wing came off, who discovered that the bolts were wearing the structure around it at a faster rate because of the flight training. He was the one that developed that. And he's already stated there's fractures, patterns, that they're doing the testing now to look to see if there was witness marks from the structure of the door, see if those pins were in place, and the bolts. And they'll be able to check that with an electron microscope and be able to see if there's any indication that they're in place, if they failed in flight, or if they were not there at all. And that's going to be the question.
The key to this, I think.
John, sorry to ask you another question from a testing point of view. Clearly this is the whole incident is centered around the pressurization of the aircraft. Is that something that you're able to test on the ground?
They can test pressurization on the ground. It usually is done for certain maintenance events. My understanding from listening to some other reporting on this is that when they assemble the aircraft in the Boeing facility, they'll actually do a pressurization check prior to putting it all out there after they put this door plug in and secured it all. But on the line, pressurization is not normally checked unless there's been something done to a door seal or pressurization controllers, and then the maintenance guys will get on board and they'll pull some breakers to basically manually allow them to control the pressurization and run it up and test seals, make sure it's working properly. I want nothing to do with that. I was on one plane being tested, and that just was a painful experience.
I bet. So. Yeah. Well, again, another story where thank you. Lee Davis says, Dirk S, I'd be upset if the drinks trolley went out the door before I got served. Very good point, well made.
We should also highlight the fact that there was an iPhone recovered that had fallen 16,000 feet and still worked. So
to be as much as I love my as much as I love my iPhone, Nick, no one is more surprised than me that it didn't smash into 18,000 million pieces, because it's basically made of glass. So as much as I'd love to be able to be lampooning Carlos with this one, I think I'm going to have to foul.
my thought on that story, Nick, was the fact that all the Android phone users on that flight were like, no, I'm not letting my phone go. No, it's not going at the door. But the iPhone users were like, oh God, I finally got a chance to get rid of this bloody phone, and they threw it out the door. So there we go. Yeah, there we go. That's my take on that thing.
See, the problem here, Carlos, is that for once I actually stuck up for you, and now it'll never happen again. John, as I say, I do feel bad because we have sort of really grilled you this. Unfortunately, as the only person available to ask these questions to, I'm so sorry, but thank you for your patience with us. We are going to move on. We're going to have to move on.
Yes, we are.
Carlos, okay. Colour studies, it was an iPhone, just saying. Yeah, we're going to move on. Unfortunately, we're going to have to sort of whittle, if we're going to get through the rest of the stories tonight, we'll need to sort of...
We're going to have to get through these. Matt, you've got a next story, and honestly, it's all doom and gloom on this week's show.
It is a bit, yes, yeah. I know, but we're saving the stories up, that's why, because as I say, that's the only trouble with our little 2-week shutdown over Christmas. We have much to catch up on anyway. The headline is on CNN.com, is the website, and the headline is "Man dies after crawling inside jet engine at Salt Lake City Airport." Police in Utah are investigating the death of a man who crawled inside the engine of a Delta Airlines jet on the ground at Salt Lake City International Airport late Monday. The airport says the 30-year-old man got into the secure ramp area of the airport through a terminal emergency exit, ran to the south end of the airport's runway where de-icing operations were underway, and crawled into an aircraft engine that was not running. Emergency responders found the man unconscious and were not able to revive him, the airport said. It is unclear at this time what injuries caused the man's death. The man had been identified as Kyler Effinger, a resident of Park City, Utah, according to the Salt Lake City Police Department. Effinger had a boarding pass for a flight to Denver, the department said. Delta Airlines says that Flight 2348, an Airbus A220, about to depart for San Francisco, then returned to the gate where all 95 passengers were deplaned. The flight was ultimately cancelled. Police responded to the airport around about 10 p.m. after a store manager inside the airport called 911 to report a disturbance involving a passenger inside a terminal, police said in a release. The details of the disturbance are still under investigation. The passenger, Effinger, had gone through one of the terminal's emergency exit doors and into the airport's outdoor ramp area, police said. During the search, a pilot reported seeing the man. The release said minutes later, officers found personal items on one of the runways, including clothes and shoes. About 10 minutes into the search, dispatchers notified police the man was at one of the airport's plane de-icing pads, where he went under a plane and assessed the engine. Police then asked air traffic controllers to tell the pilot to shut down the aircraft's engines. Oh, so they were running at the time then, by the sound of it. When the officers arrived at the plane, they found Effinger unconscious and said partially inside one of the commercial jet's plane's wing-mounted engines, which was still rotating, police said, noting that the specific stage of engine operation remains under investigation. SLCPD officers and airport operations pulled the man from the engine's intake cowling, secured the scene, began life-saving efforts, and requested emergency medical services. The release also said that those efforts included CPR and the administration of naloxone. Effinger died on the scene, according to police. An autopsy will be conducted to determine his cause and manner of death, and medical investigators may conduct a toxicology report, the department also added. Airport police say that the incident did not impact other operations at the airport. Salt Lake City Police said that they are investigating the incident, as is the Federal Aviation Administration, National Transportation Safety Board, and Transportation Security Administration. The National Transportation Safety Board said it is gathering information about the incident, but indicated that local police are handling the investigation.
You know, it seems like the last few months, but towards the end of 2023, we covered a few stories, didn't we, where people had kind of got onto airfield areas, out of restricted areas and stuff. And like in the UK here, and I mean, Nick, you know this, Nick, as well as I do, but in the UK, and especially around Heathrow and Gatwick, you've only got to park near a perimeter fence on the double red lines, and within about less than 5 minutes, you're going to have at least one or two police cars coming round to remove you.
Yeah, I've actually had exactly that happen to me at Heathrow. Actually, I was on my motorbike at Heathrow, pulled up near the opposite the threshold. Thought I'd watch the planes there for a minute, and literally within about less than a minute, I would say, two nice gentlemen with some rather large firearms in their possession asked me very politely if I wouldn't mind moving on.
Oh, very good. Right, okay.
So,
obviously one obliged, of course.
Yes.
Welcome into the hosting group this evening, Armando. He's managed to join us. He's managed to literally get off an aircraft, drive home, and jump in the studio. Hello, Armando.
And boy, are my arms tired.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Something like that.
That's
how the joke goes, right?
Yeah.
I love logging on, and then it's immediately like a who? This is your life. Like I see somebody that I've known since I was 14 years old.
Oh yeah, who's talking all about you earlier?
He
Some
was,
interesting stories.
Yeah. No,
How's it going, Cadet?
Yeah. See, there you go.
Yeah. There
what
it
did
is.
I call you? Senior. I used to call you Captain Jester. Yes, I was doing the commute back home, so I was indisposed for a little bit in an Uber and getting through Charlotte and all that stuff. So it's nice to see your face, John.
Hey,
and everyone else too, but he's got seniority.
We get it. It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
None of us offended. It's fine. Yeah. None taken.
Can I just point out, as the guys who've been watching the show since we started at 7:00 will know that Armando, literally, I messaged John literally about half an hour before the show to say, any chance you could join us? And John very kindly woke up at a ridiculous hour in the day because he's not in anywhere near Europe at all.
So it's only 4 a.m. where he is at the moment.
Yeah.
Where are you? I'm sure we've covered this already. But...
Hiroshima.
Oh, well, all right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Not like
you just don't hear that word very often.
No, not pronounced correctly.
No. Actually, I was telling them I'm only a block away from the Dome and Peace Park, so
yeah,
I went over there yesterday. So
that's right up there with just Kilimanjaro. You just throw a word out. Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
Hiroshima.
Yeah. It's also one of the few times that word is correctly pronounced on this show. Which is nice. Yeah. Unless Armando's doing it, in which case it's fine. But like, if I'm doing it, it's just a whole load of syllables.
Poor John is always trying to put phonetic spellings in most of these stories for us anyway. So.
Oh yes, yeah.
Anyway,
and I still can't do it. That's the soul destroying thing. I still can't do it.
Well, everything sounds good to us in a British accent. So,
but good to see you, Armando. Good to see you. Moving swiftly on because we are running deadly short.
We'll have to cut stories. That's the only.
We will have to cut some stories. This one is coming to us from bbc.co.uk. It's somewhere I was a few weeks ago, and it's all about Luton Airport. Dismantling of the Luton Airport's fire hit car park has started. We covered a story last year. It was that huge fire that affected London Luton Airport here in the UK, of one of their car parks, and the work has begun to dismantle the car park that was destroyed by the fire. Luton Airport said in November its Terminal 2 car park would be fully demolished after structural reports found it unsound. And if you'd seen it, like I did the other week, you would definitely know that car park was not going to be reborn anytime soon. The fire broke out on level 3 of the car park back in October last year. It was thought to have started in a diesel car before it spread rapidly through the whole car park. Work's expected to take up to 16 weeks to complete, an airport spokesman said, and he added that cars will be removed from different levels as part of the dismantling process. Following removal, salvage companies appointed by insurers would take the cars, he told the BBC, and Bedfordshire Fire and Rescue Service said previously that it was unlikely that any of the cars would be able to be used again. The airport said it provided the Motor Insurers Bureau, or the MIB, sounds like a film I've seen, with the registration details of the 1,405 vehicles that were parked in that car park in November. And in November, Neil Thompson, the operations director at the airport, said it's reassuring to note that the vast majority of insurance claims have already been settled, and that's amazing in itself because we all know what insurance companies can be.
I have many questions here. The first one is in the photos that are in the show notes here, I can see a very nice BMW SUV being hoisted off there. Looks like there's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. There's no reason why that can't go back on the road. So why? I mean, I get why, because another question is, why is it taking them so long to start this process?
I think it was due to the building itself. So many of the layers had collapsed, and the structure itself, if don't know if you've seen the car park itself, but the structure itself is predominantly like a steel framework with the concrete in between, and a lot of the steel had buckled in the heat.
Right.
The heat was that bad.
Well, maybe that's why they were writing off.
There's an interesting picture actually online when they released this story back last year. I don't know if we had it on the show, but there was an interesting picture of the collapsed floors of this car park with the fire damage, and then there was literally one car that was sitting in amongst a heap of burnt out cars that was pristine.
Oh, really?
It is bizarre how the car didn't get touched. It really is.
Indeed. Now, obviously, I mean, you mentioned that you've seen it recently, of course, because you came back from there. But just out of curiosity, because obviously you were actually booked into that car park. So, I mean, what impact did that have? What impact is it having on the arrangements for parking at the airport?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. The Luton Airport at the moment is obviously it's a very busy airport, as I found out on the morning we flew. But the car park itself has had a hefty knock-on effect for people wishing to park there, because now they are using what used to be the old Midstay car park, which is literally just next to the airport. It's a big car park, but that car park was in the process of being completely redeveloped. So all the tarmac, the surface had been ripped up, but they're now having to use that car park to park cars on. So now you are literally parking your vehicle on what essentially is gravel and bits of masonry and stones, and and because obviously the infrastructure is not in place to usher you in the right area in the car park, they've now got cones, they've got guys in high-vis jackets showing you where to go. All the barriers are broken, don't work. The ANPR system doesn't work on the car park, so you can literally just drive in without even booking your car in to park. And it's chaos, Matt. It is absolute chaos.
Okay. But I'm sure it's something they'll sort of sort out soon enough, I'm sure.
Hopefully.
But,
hopefully.
Yeah, so... Yeah, it's well, it's going to be 18 months before it's reopened, isn't it? Let's be honest. That's the thing. Bad news if you're flying out of Luton Airport, especially when they've spent so much money on the refurbishment as well.
I know, and I suggest honestly, for anyone who's flying from Luton over the next few months, I strongly advise you, if you are parking there, make sure you do get there with plenty of time to spare.
Indeed. Yeah. Right, we'll move on then.
Nick, you got the next one, all about slight
yes.
issues.
Well, as part of my remit of preparing the show notes, I do seem to have slipped in a few stories which involve bodily functions. So I couldn't quite resist this one. So this happened just before Christmas, actually. It's comes from theguardian.com. A gourmet Christmas dinner for 2,600 workers at French aerospace group Airbus Atlantic left hundreds of staff sick. The health authorities have launched an investigation to establish what caused a mass outbreak of gastroenteritis among a reported 700 employees. The festive feast was organised and provided by the company's own restaurants, and delicacies on the menu included foie gras, scallops and lobster. All for just €15 a head. The affected workers showed clinical signs of vomiting and or diarrhea. You're welcome. After the seasonal dinner on the 14th of December, most fell ill within 24 to 48 hours after the meal. Health officials said they've not yet identified the cause of the mass poisoning and are looking into whether it was caused by a bacterium in the food or an extremely contagious gastroenteritis virus.
Oh, dear.
Investigations are continuing, a spokesperson said. And a questionnaire has been sent to all those present at the meal. I can't imagine they're going to get some
Please
very
rate
good
your
responses to that.
experience.
Yeah. So, I'm going to leave it there, I think.
Yes,
but,
I think.
Yeah.
It's like the worst insult ever for a French chef. Like,
yeah.
Do they just go into exile in Bali after this?
I think so.
Or something?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. They certainly have to tear
French
up their
Foreign
citizenship.
Legion,
I think that's the thing. Yeah. Have to find another nation to.
And this is why I'm very picky when it comes to seafood. Anything seafood related. I mean, we've all seen the film Airplane, haven't we?
No,
have you?
No,
Carlos, you do a lot of weddings, DJing. Has this ever happened to you, or do you just not partake in the fish?
To be totally honest with you, Armando, whenever I do a wedding disco, which is quite frequently over the last 10 years, you do often, as a DJ, get offered the chance to go and help yourself to food. And nine times out of 10 I will, but there are occasions when I know as a DJ, when I get there 3 hours or 2 hours before the event, that the food is already out. And it's not until 3 or 4 hours later that the food is then to be consumed.
Which is fine depending on what the food is.
It's fine depending on what the food is. But so I tend to steer clear of anything that could be remotely dangerous.
Anyway,
lovely. I love that we spent 10 minutes talking about food at the start, and now we're back to food.
Anyway, moving swiftly on.
To rename the podcast.
Matt. BA. Nev is not here, but we have got a BA story.
We have indeed. Aerotime.aero is the source for this one. The headline is BA cabin manager accidentally deploys emergency slide during demonstration. A British Airways cabin manager accidentally deployed the emergency slide on a Boeing 787 Dreamliner aircraft while giving a demonstration to a colleague. The incident, which took place on the 4th of January this year, was first reported by aviation news blog Paddle Your Own Canoe, still amuses me, and occurred after flight BA139 touchdown at Mumbai Airport just after an 8-hour flight from London Heathrow, and the aircraft was taxiing to the gate. It's understood that the cabin manager gave an impromptu demonstration to a junior colleague showing how to open the aircraft door during an emergency situation. In doing so, the emergency slide at the forward left-hand door was deployed. This latest incident marks the 4th instance in less than a year that a British... And that's a very good point, isn't it? It's just the 4th incident in less than a year that a British Airways cabin crew member has mistakenly triggered an emergency slide. Previous accidental slide deployments were primarily due to cabin crew failing to disarm the slide mechanism before opening the aircraft door. The first instance occurred, or I won't go over all the other incidents because I have no doubt that we probably did indeed cover them. But yes, this is a bit of an awkward
expensive
one.
Mistake.
Yeah, and indeed, and sort of really, somebody who's just joined us could not have joined at a more optimum moment, really. As I say, we're discussing a BA story, and
guess who's here?
Nev, guess what's happened?
I think I could hear my name being used in vain, probably. But yes. Now I've got to say, in the BA's defence, I mean these things can happen, obviously, but all the aircraft I've been on, there's a very, very definite sort of challenge and response going on between the two cabin crew members at door 1L, which is obviously what they normally use to board the aircraft. But accidents can happen, if someone's distracted or there's other stuff going on. I'd say in this situation there was someone trying to do a demo. Yeah. But clearly that was not the right thing to do. It's expensive and potentially dangerous as well to ground personnel.
Well, yes, because somebody could, especially if they were in the process of, were they taxiing? I'm just trying to see what it said in the story here. Or were they stationary at the point of it being deployed?
I believe they were taxiing, Matt, yes.
Oh, dear. So there could have been anyone or anything around there. I mean, you'd like to think they weren't following that closely, that a slide being deployed would be nothing other than a little light amusement. But yeah. So here's a question. We've probably covered it before, but when you've had a slide deployed like this, can it be repacked and reapplied to the aircraft, or does it have to be taken away to be done? I assume it lives under the door in some form of sort of pack.
It has to be taken off the aircraft, deflated, inspected, repacked, and replaced back on the aircraft, which is a pricey situation.
I imagine so. Yeah.
So that's a huge mistake, and the choice to do a demonstration after an 8-hour flight, and you've been up for 12 or 14 hours, and why are you doing it while you're taxiing? Questions.
Well, and presumably,
questions
obviously,
on why we did that.
it wouldn't have been at that point. It wouldn't have been disarmed either. So it's clearly just an error on the.
Can you imagine being up front, John, and you're taxiing after that long flight, and you're like, "What is going on back there?"
Yeah.
As you get all the lights and bells and whistles.
That would be,
fuming. I think
you'd
is the
be
word.
stomping on the brakes, and you're going, "What's happened?
Yeah.
Do I have a crazy person back there, or is there a fire back there I don't know about?" I mean, there'd just be so many questions. And
no, just turned out to be
the first question is,
crew.
why did you choose to do that at that time?
Yeah.
But I know from my company's experience, going out to meet an airplane, another BCF that I don't like so much. One of the reasons is we have slides on the 2 slides on the upper deck, and pilots have to be trusted to disarm those slides, and that is never a wise choice.
No.
And one of the flights came into where I was picking it up, and it had been a long flight, and they disarmed it by deploying it.
I mean, it's
pilot
effective.
was just like, I don't know why I grabbed it.
Yeah.
It's because his brain's turned off, and it seems like that's what happened here. It's like good intent, but
I mean, fatigue is surely that's a factor here as well, isn't it? As you say, it's after an 8-hour flight and all this kind of thing. I mean, I think the poor guy just wasn't thinking, but I mean, he certainly won't do it again.
Yeah, and those doors are spring loaded to basically launch. There's not a lot of pressure required to actuate that handle, and then once you start actuating the handle, the door says, "Oh, you'd like me to open? I will finish this for you."
Give me a minute. Yes, I'll take over. Thank you. Bill's asking, Nev, did you know that people actually sat that far back on the plane?
No, complete new concept for me, Bill. I mean, I was in 3 Alpha today. I didn't even know that seat existed.
Wow, okay. Where's that? Where's 3 Alpha?
I had to get the seat guru map out, see where it was.
Right,
okay. I was thinking of Nev today because I got upgraded. I'm using air quotes up to 5F, which is the last row in first class. And I was like, channeling my inner Nev, just thinking, oh my gosh, I think I can smell the cookies in the back. Like, oh my god. What are they? Are they eating on paper plates and plastic?
Oh my god! Oh, can you imagine? Yes, you could smell the public. I mean, honestly, ugh.
We are kidding. I hope everybody knows that. Yes, never mind.
Honestly, Nev, it was so calm before you joined us.
Yeah, I wouldn't like to appear that I know it all. Or anything like
No, perish the thought. Okay.
Anyway, moving swiftly on.
I'm bringing the family over to the UK, obviously now, right, as we start kind of preparing for the 500th. And it's a pretty massive difference for 4 people between business or first and coach. So I'll be in the back. I'll be in 68Q on
I beg your pardon?
777.
What's a Q? What's a Q? Is that a character from Star Trek?
It's on the right side of the airplane.
Armando a bit in the APU.
Yeah.
I'll be in the lab.
At least you'll be warm. That's the main.
Well, we have belted labs and BizJets, so maybe I'll just be in the belted lab in a 777.
I'm guessing then that you couldn't just say, can I just borrow the the BizJet for a few days?
Carlos. No.
Sure.
That's not.
As soon as I win the North Carolina Education Lottery.
Okay. Right. Okay.
That'll be my
Fair
first.
enough.
Well, this was very
No.
helpful. Yes.
Moving on with the next story, Armando, just as well you're here because the next story is very relevant for a subject that you know very well.
Yep. Actually, John and I have talked about this. John was supposed to go. He's to the Reno Air Races too. So it's a Reno Air Race story. I'll kind of sum it up. They put out a bid for new locations, so I don't need to go into the background of why Reno is no longer Reno. We've talked about that enough on the show, but the Reno Air Race Association, which I'm always kind of wondering if they're going to change their name now, so just the Air Race Association.
Yeah.
So they actually received bids, and they are evaluating some candidates. Lots of jokes and internet memes about Roswell, New Mexico. Yep, that is actually a leading candidate.
Oh, wow.
Pueblo,
okay.
Colorado, Casper, Wyoming, Buckeye, Arizona, Thermal, California, and Wendover, Utah were sort of the finalists. And RARA, the Reno Air Race Association, has pretty much, I think, they're narrowing it down, and they have just sent out a statement saying that they're going to come to a public decision or a decision that will be publicized in the spring. So as you guys know, it's been going on since 1964. It's only been canceled twice, 2001 after 9/11 and 2020 after the COVID pandemic. Yeah. So it seems as we hoped that Reno, again, we're just going to have to call it something else, that the air races will have a new national championship air race home, hopefully at one of these 6 locations. So it's a $125 million investment by the city, so brings in a lot of money.
But it's such an iconic event, though, isn't it? I mean, surely it will still attract the same visitor numbers that they were getting before. I mean, surely that's gonna, sort of.
I hope so, but all of us that are involved in basically the staff from the senior level of the organization down, all are under a consensus that it needs to be revamped. It needs to be modernized somehow, right? With technology. Red Bull Air Racing did a great job of marketing themselves, of having the telemetry on board, having the onboard cameras, having a branding that they had. Reno really has not changed too much since 1964, which is one of the reasons why it is undergoing this transformation. So as you can see behind me, I've put up new posters. Hopefully it will turn into something like this where, back in the day we had the St. Louis Air Race, the Cleveland Air Race, the Chicago Air Race. And that's, I think, kind of what it's going to look like a little bit more, is just there's going to be these regional events culminating in a national championship air race at Roswell or something like that. So,
nice.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed indeed to not lose such an iconic event, really, I think.
And then John, you and your dad will just have to meet me in Roswell or Wendover, Utah or something.
Well, I'm voting for Buckeye because my folks bailed on Reno and they moved down to Phoenix, so Buckeye would be a lot closer.
Well, Buckeye's right.
It's going to be harder. It's going to be very hard to replace Reno because of the terrain that airport had was just fantastic for that event in terms of being able to see the entire course clearly from the stands and coming up the straight, and that with the audio quality because of the altitude just it brings shivers to me right now thinking about it, talking about it, because I remember it back in the day when it was 5-6 P-51s come up the straight at 400 plus miles an hour and fantastic sound. So hopefully it's going to be I can't imagine the world without having airplanes like this running around at ridiculous speeds 50 feet off the ground. Is needs to come back.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it will be back.
Fingers crossed. Now, Matt, you've got the last story on the commercial news segment for this week, and it's a feel-good story, isn't it?
Yes. Sorry, yes, indeed. We're off to Somerset for this. Oh, brilliant! Hang on, sorry, minor technical glitch. There we go. We're off to Somerset for this one. It's because I haven't done it for 2 weeks. Armando, you see, I've forgotten how it all works. A Somerset amputee, former soldier, to become a pilot. This is on the bbc.co.uk website. Lewis Farrell from Wincanton in Somerset has been training with the commercial airline TUI with help from the charity Wings for Warriors. He's now achieved his commercial licence and will undergo more training before starting flying on the 5th of March. It's been a whirlwind, said Mr. Farrell, who was hospitalised for almost 4 years due to his injury. Wings for Warriors train wounded, injured or sick ex-service personnel as professional pilots. The charity introduced Mr. Farrell to TUI after putting him through the initial training. It has progressed from an offer to a contract that I signed 2 weeks ago, he told the BBC Radio Somerset. I honestly did not think I could do it until I met Wings for Warriors. In 2013, he suffered a serious injury with his when his leg became trapped while on active duty. I was hoping to have a 22-year career in the army. The things that I wanted to do in the in the military, which was to become a pilot, I honestly didn't think was going to be possible going forward. I'm so sorry. The story has disappeared, I'm afraid. But you get the gist there. As I say, really good. What a great charity it is. Before now, I think we sort of come across sort of something similar, isn't it? And I guess, Armando, there's sort of similar programs and stuff in the States, isn't there? In terms of sort of helping ex servicemen of all kinds to sort of get back in, get a second career outside of the military, and this is a great idea.
Yeah, or even in the military. Actually, the first I think Douglas Bader was the first amputee pilot back in the RAF, 1931. So there's actually a long history of these kinds of things. These people overcoming these physical differences. There was recently a Zach Anglin who did the social media circuit. He's a quadruple amputee. He's a commercial pilot.
Wow.
I think over either in Europe or Africa, I can't remember. So he is doing, and then we did a story, a young lady in the California, I think it was, that was flying an air coupe that was specially modified for her. And I wish I remembered her name, but yeah, it's there is precedent for this, and thankfully for the FAA, there is precedent for this too. I mean, it's not an easy journey by any means.
No, I bet.
This is really interesting. John and I both flew a lot of cadets for the Civil Air Patrols, a lot of young kids, and we did not have any restrictions as far as physical abilities or disabilities, as far as who we would put in the airplane. And
okay.
And we would put them in the right seat and let them do their prescribed syllabus maneuvers. And it was really, really interesting to see. I guess I don't know how you would put it, John, but like the light come on where some of these kids with neurodiversity issues or physical disabilities, to be able to pilot an aircraft with us in the left seat kind of guiding them. But it was probably one of the best parts of the organization, right?
Oh, absolutely. I was that was my thing I like to do, if that was to have the opportunity to fly the cadets, because he had a chance to just crack them out of their shell and get them to open up and usually not tell them they're going to be flying the airplane and just say, well, do this for me, do that for me. I distinctly recall having a cadet who I took her, put her in the plane. I think I was actually an instructor in CAP at the time, so I think I might even had her in the left seat. And I took her out to the runway, took off. I had her on the controls. I said, okay, well, let's hold on to them. I'll just kind of keep an eye on it. And I would just say, okay, do things in the way I'm saying it. Do it at the speed I'm saying it. We flew all around, did all kinds of stuff. I demonstrated stuff I needed to, brought her back, and had her on the controls. And all I did was help with the trim. And I just said, and the throttles. And I said, okay, we'll do this. And when I tell you to pull back, I want you to pull back at this cadence I say to pull back. And so she's doing it. And she landed the plane. I had my hand around the controls, but I actually did not physically touch the controls. First time in an airplane, literally, she'd never ever been in an airplane. She landed the airplane.
Wow.
And when I told her that, and it came out to her, I mean, she was just like
overwhelmed. I bet.
Head exploded.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, you did that all on your own. So it's a great program, and it's amazing to see something like this. Given that opportunity and having the opportunity to progress and have it as a career potentially is great. I think that we've come such a long way with treating wounded and amputees and people like that this opportunity is great, and to see this kind of stuff, and we need people in the cockpit, so it's great to have all sorts.
Yeah, and what a great way to publicize aviation and general aviation. I think, Matt, you just put it up there. Richard Adams in the chat room is talking about the UK display team. Yeah, Team Phoenix, and I think we've had them on the show a couple of years ago, where they are a display team comprised entirely of different versions of amputees.
That was heads up by Nick's chum, Mike Wildman. If you,
that's it.
Well, and we did a big interview with Mike. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, so there you go.
So that brings to an end the commercial news for this week. I've still got loads to get through on the show. We're going to quickly go through the caption list just for fun this week. The picture that we pop up on our social medias on normally on a Wednesday, but it's going to be earlier in the week going forward now. But we did get a chance to put a picture up on the socials this week, and we have had some comments on. Matt, you've got the picture there on the screen for those of you watching in the world of YouTube. Nev, what can you describe this picture as being of?
Looks like a very large platter of food to me. Champagne, beautiful china plates and what have you. Yes, that's enough to feed the 5,000.
Or me, at the end of the day.
And there's two passengers looking extremely peckish as well. I can't wait to get stuck in.
If only in-flight service looked like that, eh?
Oh, my word. Can you imagine, honestly? Right, so we've had comments from, we're going to kick off with the first one here from Michael, Mr. Biff, who says it was becoming increasingly clear that Ryanair's new marketing manager wasn't going to last long. What's Mark saying, Matt?
I don't know, I'm afraid.
No, Nev, what's Mark saying?
Yeah, well, Mark says it's the starter from the man in 1A. He wonders if you would like it as he's a little full this morning. I've been trying not to eat airline food today because I'll tell you more about it later on. But yeah, it's a good point, though, Mark. Yeah.
Armando, do you want to take the next one?
Dirk says, even all these delicacies couldn't distract his mind from the tormenting question he'd wrestle with all morning. Why is this woman sitting in my seat 1A?
Good point well made. Yes, very true. Outrageous.
Jason says, wait, where's the panini?
Oh no!
Yes,
I think the photo comes from a time when paninis didn't exist. I'm just saying.
No, you're probably right. Actually. Yeah, good point. Stephen says, "Woman with biggest hands in the world lands dream job," and you'll have to look at the YouTube version of this show to see what that's about.
That is a good point.
What's Ian saying, Armando?
I see a theme here. Breakfast for Neville.
Mark says Roger's dentures barely survived the first course, but Marjorie insisted that he continued eating. It's all inclusive, darling.
Wow.
David says, are there any vegan options?
Right. Okay. I'm sure there is. The biscuits in the middle there look quite compliant.
Armando, you want to take the last one from Bill?
Continuing on with the theme, please thank Mr. Bounds for sending back all his leftovers to the rest of us in steerage.
Well, quite.
Oh, my word.
Dear, have we got anything in the chat room before we move on?
We've got, what's this one here from Lee? There we go, Lee Davies. He's come up with that little
Good
gem
point.
there.
Where is the bacon and eggs?
Oh, my word. A lovely one here from... if you just refresh it, lovely one here from Richard. Look at that one, Matt.
If you don't finish your meal, you'll be moved to economy, Nev. Just bear that in mind, all right?
Oh, yeah, good one.
We've got a very nice one here from a young Mr. Owen who says...
Never heard of him.
What's he saying?
Oh, sorry. I was going to try and do it in an accent. I'm not going to. It'll be offensive. What are they doing serving the passengers from my crew food?
Crew food? Crew food.
Wow, okay.
All
right.
John
Clearly I'm in the wrong world.
John Jester's been lying to us all this time. This is the food that he gets served.
Is it?
On the flight deck. Yeah.
God, I wish. I actually just coming out of Liège the other day, it was one of the first times I've had decent food on the plane in a long time. It was normally we get served pretty much what's in economy is thrown into a box with us, and that's what we get. And this time we actually had legitimate meals with metal cutlery, which was like amazing.
Wow.
Of late, everybody's been giving us that bamboo stuff, which is
rubbish.
Just ridiculous to eat with. Yes.
Rubbish is the word.
Right.
For. Yes.
Time to move on swiftly to the military segment of the show. We've got to rush through now. We're going to get these through. Yes. We know we have a rush hour. We've got 20 minutes. Actually,
I thought we had a
22
segment
minutes
from Neville.
Nev, did you want to read this particular part of the show?
I'll talk about it a bit later on, perhaps.
Okay, fine, fair enough.
Towards the end, yes.
Well,
Right,
I'll do
so
that. Let's rush
handing over things to Armando. Armando, take it over.
It's a good one, so I'll have to leave some extra time. Matt, hit the button. Let's go.
What's up, bogeys? 135, 50, Angel 16, heading 340. Okay. 100 St. Boogie.
All right, I think all of our pilot listeners will get a kick out of this one. Last week, a B-1 bomber from the 28th Bomb Wing at Ellsworth Air Force Base crashed while attempting to land. The Air Force put out a statement that the aircraft was on a training mission and was recovering back at its home airfield when this mishap actually happened. All 4 of the crew egressed the aircraft safely. There was actually some reports that they actually ejected out of the aircraft, which, of course, they have 0 ejection seats in that airplane, so they can do it at a stop on the ground. At the time, the weather was pretty bad. Visibility was 1/10 of a mile, overcast clouds at 100 feet with freezing fog. So beautiful flying conditions. The next day, I think there's some images that Matt is going to put up there. But the next day, we actually saw some images from a webcam that is outside the airfield. This crash, well, that's not it, Matt. That is my flying for the year.
Oh,
that is also my flying for the year. Thanks for publicizing that.
Okay.
The next day, we saw some images of the aftermath that showed basically there was nothing left of the airplane. Somehow it had skidded off the runway and ended up on the grass on the side of the runway, and it looked like in typical B-1 fashion, it had broken its back. So kind of right halfway on the backbone, it had separated, definitely totally destroyed. The B-1 fleet, as we've talked about on the show, is already being downsized. It's going from 62 airframes to 45 airframes. So this is just kind of helping the divestiture process. There are some restrictions that have been placed on the aircraft recently to extend the lives of the jets, mostly because of the backbone issues. There's some wing issues too, and some engine issues. But either way, the B-21 that was just unveiled, 2-3 months ago, something like that, is supposed to be one of the replacements for this, with Ellsworth Air Force Base, where this happened, being one of the first bases that's going to get the B-21 Raider. So happy that the crew is all safe, and we're just speeding along the retirement of the B-1 bomber.
And no, Jonathan Warner, before you ask, you can't have any plane tags from this B-1.
Oh, you never know. What do you think they're going to do with all these B-1s? I'm just going to end up on sticks in museums. Huh?
It wouldn't surprise me if those guys over at Plane Tags don't get one of these Armando and release a heap of tags.
They're not exactly new. So, I mean, geez, most of these are going on, 30, 40 years old. So, but either way, North Dakota, where this happened, is not exactly a charming place to fly in the winter. And John, I'd say even with military gear and equipment, 1/10 of a mile overcast at 100 with freezing fog is, I don't know what they were doing.
That sounds pretty sporty to me. For 1/10 of a mile, I don't know that they have Autoland. That would be an Autoland for us in 7.4 for sure. I mean, that's some super low visibility. I mean, you're not going to see much when you touch down, if at all. And it doesn't surprise me if they're off the side at all. One little flinch or visual acuity issues with that low visibility, it's not great. And then freezing fog, that does a number on your wings if they don't have the proper heat, and engines are going to pick up a lot of ice. It's just makes me shiver.
Yeah, me as well. And I'm I have no idea what equipment is in a B-1, so I can't imagine that they just disregarded all the rules and tried to do it. But there you go. Another military story, kind of another reconnaissance story. Beale Air Force Base, the 9th Reconnaissance Wing and the 940th Air Refueling Wing just executed an elephant walk, as we've seen on the show a couple times already. And that is where a bunch of airplanes get together in a show of force, more or less. And the 9th Reconnaissance Wing threw out their U-2 Dragon Ladies and some of their gloss black T-38 trainers that they use for efficiency and for following along, doing some tail chases and some tankers. Pretty cool pictures that Matt is going to put up here. They are the correct ones, I verified. And so pretty neat when they do this. The U2 also getting divested. They're talking about 2025 starting to retire the U2 platform, wrapping up somewhere around 2027. As you guys know, the U2 is a venerable platform, long historied career, and I look forward to seeing these at hopefully air shows and sticks and museums. A few of these are going to NASA. I think they've been flying that RB-47 for a long time now, but NASA's already got I think a couple of 2-seat U2s, right? I see you.
Yeah, they had like one or two, and they can call them ER2s. They've operated out of. I know they've operated out of Wallops in Virginia, where my folks have a house, and they've probably be benefit of these, so they can put so many sensor packages on this aircraft.
Yeah,
it can really help them out.
Yeah, lots of research can be done. I mean, I'm sure that the U.S. Air Force said a bunch of research was being done over Russia in the 19th. Oh, it's just aerial sampling, I'm sure.
These are incredible aircraft. I've been witness to them in their operational environment, doing their black kind of things, and watching one of those things roll out and blast off, and just ridiculous deck angle, just going up into the sky, and it just keeps going and going until it disappears. It's pretty impressive. So, and to think this is like a 50s airplane, it's just nuts.
Yeah. Oh, Benny agrees.
Benny agrees.
Thanks, Benny. Appreciate the input. It makes a change from Alfie. Yeah.
That's a great cue to give John military story number 3, because he understands the importance of the enlisted force.
Story 3. See the vintageaviationnews.com. The National Museum of the U.S. Air Force has completed the installation of a new exhibit highlighting the Department of the Air Force's enlisted personnel. The enlisted force exhibit is the museum's newest permanent exhibit and honors the highly skilled, trained, and talented enlisted force that has been the backbone of daily operations for the U.S. Department of Air Force through its 76-year history. To mark the exhibit opening, the museum hosted a private ceremony to honor exhibit contributors, museum staff, and volunteers, and other special guests, including Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Joanne S. Bass, Chief Master Sergeant of the Space Force, John S. Bettenvenga, and former Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force and Air Force Museum Foundation, Vice Chair Gerald R. Murray. Today, the enlisted airmen and guardians represent approximately 80% of the Department of Air Force and provide a solid foundation for air and space operations and cyberspace. And enlisted, Armando being a great example, are absolutely what makes the military tick, and you cannot do a single thing without that enlisted corps being behind. Every person that's out there sitting in a fighter jet has got probably 100 enlisted personnel that are doing all kinds of jobs that make the world move for the military. I know when we roll on doing a military contract, we have probably 20 enlisted personnel coming out helping load our aircraft up with the cargo that we're carrying for them, and it's one officer there maybe doing some paperwork for them and checking some stuff out. They're the ones that make things happen. They're the ones that the officers oftentimes go to really get the detail that they need to do their jobs properly. They're the ones doing a lot of the briefings. They're the ones that are maintaining the aircraft. So it's they definitely need to be honored. And it's good to see that they're doing that in the Air Force Museum.
Yeah, and increasingly the enlisted force is professionalizing even more. And education used to be kind of the separator between the two I guess careers between an enlisted and officer force, especially in the U.S. Air Force. There's more and more enlisted that have bachelor's degrees and master's degrees, and it's just increasingly more and more technical. So everything that John said is exactly correct. And I'm glad that they're getting the public recognition. All right. So I did that super fast because I couldn't wait to get to Nev. So sorry, John. I'll give you a special for Jonathan Warner. I'll give you a special military segment just in your WhatsApp or something like that. Anyways, let's hand it over because I can't wait.
Well, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but on the Apple podcast, reviews and so on, people put reviews about what they think, and often we get a 5-star review, but back in September we only got a 2-star review. Mainly it's my fault, unfortunately, because the author says Plain Talking UK generally good but spoiled somewhat by Nev's know-it-all attitude and general miserable nature. Well, I'm sorry about those things. And maybe it was a bad series of Nev's terminal tantrums that were playing out. If I've had a particularly bad experience, perhaps. But anyway, so it is only a bit of fun, and we do welcome all kinds of feedback. I will try to be more positive in future, and I shall act more humbly because I do not know it all, not even slightly. I'm a mere passenger with about 4 hours experience on an A320 simulator and a 737 simulator. So,
I haven't got to retire this, have I?
No.
Oh no. So that's part of the show.
There's bound to be an opportunity to use it.
Thank goodness. I was very concerned there for a minute.
Sure, so don't worry about that. But,
Indeed,
I will say not a lot of the the general population can relate to flying in first class, but everyone that has ever flown an airplane can always relate to Nev's. What do we call it? Travel tantrums?
Yes,
Terminal tantrums, because we've all been through it. We've all been through exactly all of those things.
Indeed.
Absolutely. Having the pleasure of doing that. Well, I was just there and back to Edinburgh today, which was all great, very nice, but we're off to Portland, Oregon on Friday for a week.
Exciting.
For work. So I'm going to the company's HQ with all my friends, my work colleagues, and that's on a 787-8.
Nice.
Looking forward to that very much, and a direct flight, which is good. Because if we had to go through Seattle, then we'd have to connect using usually Alaska Airlines going up to Portland, and maybe they're a bit short of aircraft.
They might well be, certainly.
To do that sector at the moment. So it's just, we've got a direct one. So I shan't be on the show next Wednesday, obviously, because we're 8 hours out of whack with the UK, so it's almost impossible to do a show even remotely. So the show will be going.
I'm sorry, wait, 8 hours? That's it?
Yeah. Nev probably doesn't know where you are in the world.
I thought you were in the Netherlands, John.
No.
No, konnichiwa.
Oh, well, that's even worse.
Yeah. It's just coming up on 5 a.m., isn't it now, I think, John? Something like that.
No, almost 6.
Oh, my apologies.
Yeah,
Also,
you're such a seasoned operator and traveller, and I'm mere amateur in all this. So,
Well, London to Seattle is just a reposition flight for you, right, John?
Yeah, like pretty much. Yeah.
That'd be a normal run, I guess. But,
yeah. It's just this is a short flight. Yeah.
It'd probably be about London, Seattle, probably be 10 hours, maybe a little less, 9 hours for us.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Depends on how much gas we want to apply to the situation.
Quite. Several.
I suppose it depends on how much sushi you've had the night before.
Oh, dear.
Anyway,
yes.
Nev, it's time to give away a book, isn't it, Nev?
It is, isn't it? Yes. And this week's prize is Private Airplane Passenger Safety by John O'Graybill. And I think we've got a picture of it. Yes, there it is. And that looks... is that one of yours, Carlos?
It's one of my collection that, yes, we are giving away. It's very apt with the current stories that we've had on the show this week.
I bet Gemma's absolutely delighted that he's starting to get rid of all of his silly airplane books.
Yeah. Well, he's got to make more room for other aircraft parts.
Yeah, he hasn't told her that bit yet.
Door plugs, for example.
Yeah, readily available apparently.
Things like that, yes. Now, of course, we've got a question to go with this. So the question for this week is, well, we all know that the Cessna 150, of course, is one of the world's most popular training aircraft and what a lot of people start on. But what year did the Cessna 150 first fly? What year did the Cessna 150 first fly? And I was amazed when I saw the answer to this, actually. So, so we'll be giving away that book to whoever gives us the correct answer. We'll put them in the hat, as always do, next week, or the fellas will, because I shan't be here. So come up with the answer, and we'll draw the answers out of the hat, and we'll give.
I'll tell you what. Let's go crazy. We'll run it as it's the start of the year, and everything. We'll run it for 2 weeks.
There you go. How about that?
I've made an executive decision. There you
Brilliant.
go.
My word.
Yeah. So you've got 2 weeks to get your answers in. So those who are listening via the podcast have an opportunity to be able to enter as well. All you have to do, send your email with the correct answer, ideally, to you actually, to be fair, we'll accept it on all channels. So if you like, you can do it obviously via our WhatsApp number. Carlos will be able to collate those. The WhatsApp number is, Nev?
I'm glad you asked for that question. It's +44 757 224 9166.
And the email address?
Email address is podcast@planetalkinguk.com. And then, of course, you can search all the socials because we're on Facebook, X, and Instagram as well.
X. Oh, look at you.
So just search for Plane Talking UK.
Indeed, there we go. And we've cleverly done all the socials and everything all at the same time. There you go. Very efficient. Just 5 minutes to go, so just a quick roundup.
Yeah, got to say a big thanks as well before we wrap up tonight to Richard, who's become our latest Patreon donator to the show. So big thanks to Richard tonight. We obviously got the notification through. So thanks to Richard for becoming our latest Patreon donator. Don't forget, if you want to become a patron of the show and shape the way we do the things on the show each week and what we do. If you've got a few spare pounds down the back of the sofa, as we'd say here in the UK, you can find all the details on our website, all the planetalkinguk.com. So, quick round robin before we finish. Right, we're going to start with John. What are you up to next week?
Oh, next week? I don't know. It's hopefully going home. That's my plan. I fly up to Narita tomorrow, and then do a Narita to Cincinnati flight, and then I'm off for about 10 days. So, and then I have to go training at the end of the month. So that's my big plans for coming up.
Excellent. Well, have some great travels and take some great pictures as well, because we do love your pictures that you send us and the team as well, John. Love those pictures. Armando, what are you up to next week?
I'll be in the biplane, actually. The weather, we just had this crazy storm that came through the U.S., so on the backside of that is some nice weather. So hopefully get out there. It's not too cold. Get in the biplane, and then I think next Wednesday I have training a new owner into the PC-12. He just bought one, so hopefully that'll be done in the morning by the time that the show starts.
Excellent. Mr. Bounds, what are you up to next week?
Well, I've already given it away, really, haven't I? So on Friday of this week, I'm off to Portland. Our office is in Beaverton, so just outside of Portland. So I'll be there until the following Friday. So I'm there for a week. We've got our global sales meeting where all my colleagues come together from all around the world. It's always a great laugh. I expect to put on a minimum of 10 kilos in weight, as my American friends are not shy with giving us lots of food and drink. So I'm looking forward to that in one respect, but trying to get rid of the weight. Also, before I've got another show to do in Barcelona at the end of the month as well, another week's worth of excess possibly. So,
wow.
Yeah. It's small problems, but there you are. That's how it is.
And I'm looking forward to you coming back with some stories as well, Nev.
Yes.
Excellent. Nick, now I know you are our resident motorcyclist aficionado on the show. I'm guessing it's a bit chilly for you to be heading out on your motorbike here in the UK.
Yeah, I've been out a little bit, but not loving it at the moment. It's definitely not bikini weather down here in Devon.
Very much not. No.
But no, I'm just going to be making a very hearty and concerted effort to make my way through the rest of the Christmas leftovers.
Excellent. Good news. And Matt, apart from visiting me at work, what are you up to next week?
I don't know. I've got an unusually quiet weekend, which I'm very, very excited about. Bit of radio to squeeze in here and there. Things are quite sort of busy on that front at the moment. Got some big plans in our studios that I've got to get some work doing. Got some tech bits and pieces to do. We're going to be refurbishing the main Studio One, which you've never been in, Carlos. So we've got a new desk to go in there, big refurb there. But we have to do some work to Studio 2 first before we can take Studio 1 off air. So that's going to be a fun project to be involved in. But yeah, other than that, bit of work.
Excellent.
And everything else, yeah.
And quickly, before we finish, don't forget, we, PTUK, are going to be at the Drone Summit in Dublin at the RDS Arena on March the 1st and March the 2nd this year. It's just around the corner. We're going to be there doing some great stuff there as well. So that's something to look forward to, the Drone Summit there in Dublin. So looking forward to that with the team. Going to say a massive thanks to you, John. Absolute legend, John. Thank you ever so much for coming on the show tonight. You have been fantastic, as always.
No problem. And I want to say hi to my parents who are watching in Phoenix right now.
Aww.
So hello to them. And yeah, no problem. It's glad to be on. It's kind of fun to break up a day like this, or early morning as it is.
Yes, maybe a little more kip after this, perhaps.
Oh, you're so good, John. Thank you so much again. Thank you for coming on. Armando, thanks for joining us. Obviously, a last minute there, but thanks for coming on. We always appreciate you managing to land and join us ASAP.
No problem. And I will also say hello to John's parents.
Aww.
Hello.
And Nev as well. Thanks to Nev for dropping in as well. Good to see you, and have a safe trip next week. We look forward to having you back safely on the show in a few weeks' time. And also Nick as well. Thanks for all the work and that you're doing the show notes and stuff for the show this week. Thank you to you as well. And also John as well, not forgetting our producer John, who does work in the background and looks and gives us a poke every now and again, doesn't he? Bless him.
Indeed. We're over time.
And obviously, thanks to Matt as well for being in the studio.
No.
There we go. That's it.
Wrap it up.
Our first show on the new time of Wednesday, 7 p.m. That's it. It's all for this week. We'll see you next Friday. And take care. Have a great weekend. And last words, Nev. Say goodbye.
Yeah, take care. Have a good one. See you next time. Bye.